Testing, testing, testing. one caller here. I want to allow to talk. 8105. Hello, I see one in with the last four digits of 8105. Can you identify yourself?
Yeah, this is Henry Micus from Sebastopol.
Identify. Okay, let me bring you in as a panelist, Henry. Yes,
Thank
let
you.
me bring you in. You're welcome.
Good morning. This is Jennifer Burke from Santa Rosa. So looks like we don't quite have a quorum yet. Is that correct, Secretary Reyes?
Jennifer.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Hang on one moment, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yes, that is correct. We don't have a quorum yet.
Okay, thank you.
We have Sebastopol and Katati on the line.
We do have a quorum,
Um,
3 out of 5.
yes, we're trying to get our secretary on, so just one moment.
Okay.
I'll use this pause to say hello. Hello, everybody. It's Craig.
Hey, Craig, it's Henry. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Henry?
Okay,
Jennifer?
Good morning, Craig. Good morning, Henry. If it's at all possible, Craig, we would love to see you on video, as this is a live streamed public meeting. So this
Sure.
is being live broadcast right now. Anyone that can be on camera, we'd appreciate it.
Got it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, Jennifer, this is Henry. I have had internet troubles this morning, which is why I'm using the phone, because that seems to work. But my video it didn't want to link up this morning.
No worries.
I live out here. I live out in West County, where we have a very appreciated but very volunteer co-op for internet. And I don't know if it's their connection or our line of sight or what the deal is, but there's days when it just doesn't work right for video.
Understood. Secretary Reyes, have we heard if Roanoke Park or Sonoma Water, representing South Park Sanitation District, is joining today?
I have not heard anything this morning.
Okay. Craig and Henry, your prerogative. What would you like to do? Would you like us to wait another minute, or would you like to start?
I think waiting another couple of minutes is okay with me.
Okay,
Absolutely, here too.
great, we'll do.
With these extra logistics, it just takes extra time.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Appreciate
Mary
the wait
Grace.
on logistics. I was not getting in this morning.
Understood.
Morning, Mary Grace.
Morning, Craig.
Hello, Mary Grace.
Morning, Henry.
So I think we're waiting for Sonoma Water. We'll give it another minute. And then if they don't join in another minute, we'll go ahead and get started, if that's okay with everyone.
I see the rain's dissipated. The forecast kind of dried up.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. Although we have to go out and do stormwater sampling events. And so it was looking like we would have had to be out there at the early hours of Saturday morning. So
Mm-hmm.
You're okay with that one, huh?
Kind of. It's got to fall between 8 and 5. Come on.
On Monday to Friday.
Right.
Craig, if you can make that power work, that would be awesome.
No, I don't profess to have those powers.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 8:07. And Secretary Reyes, can we have a roll call, please?
Santa Rosa,
Here?
City of Cotati,
Here.
City of Roanoke Park,
Present.
Sonoma Water, City of Sebastopol,
Present.
All right, thank you, Secretary Reyes. So I do want to remind everyone that this is a public meeting. We are on a Zoom call that is being live streamed over the web. We do ask committee members and presenters, if at all possible, to please be available on camera and to mute your phones and microphones when you are not speaking. And so we will go through. Our first item is approval of minutes. Looks like we have March 3rd and March 12th minutes to consider. Can we take those together or do we need to take them one at a time?
I believe I was not present for the second one.
Okay, so we'll need to move each one individually then potentially. Is there a motion and a second for the minutes?
I can move we accept the first ones.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Sebastopol to approve the March 3rd minutes and a second from Roanoke Park. Secretary Reyes, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Santa Rosa,
Aye.
City of Cotati,
Aye.
City of Roanoke Park,
Aye.
Sonoma Water, City of Sebastopol,
Aye.
All right, thank you. So that passes 4 ayes and 1 absent. Is there a motion and a second for the other minutes, the March 12th minutes?
I'll make a
Wait.
motion we approve.
Second.
So we have a motion from Sebastopol and a second from Roanoke Park. Secretary Reyes, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Santa Rosa,
Aye.
City of Cotati,
Abstain?
City of Rohnert Park,
Aye.
Sonoma Water, City of Sebastopol,
Aye.
All right, and that motion passes with, or those are accepted with 3 ayes, 1 abstain, and 1 absent. All right. Item number 3, are there any announcements from any of the TAC members? All right. If no announcements, we'll move on to item number 4, public comment. Public comment on non-agenda items. We are now taking public comments on item 4. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you are dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. The chair will then ask, Secretary Reyes, are there any live email or voicemail public comments?
there are not any.
Sorry, still getting the logistics down for these virtual meetings. All right, thank you. Item number 5, new business. So our first item will be a presentation on our wastewater revenue bond series 2020A and refunding of our bond series 2012A. And Deputy Director Water Administration Kimberly Zunino will be kicking off the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. This morning, myself and Sarah Hollenbeck from PFM will be discussing a couple of opportunities that we have, or I should say the bond that we have been discussing all year long, and then also an opportunity for a refunding. So could you go to the next slide, please? There we go. So we will talk about the UV disinfection system replacement maximum bond at $70 million. I wanted to let you know that that is how we will be taking it forward to the Board of Public Utilities and to the City Council. However, as we get closer to the market, if we decide to add additional cash funding, that amount could come down. And then also we would add any refund reserve that may be released based on the refunding that we'll be discussing. We would be adding that also straight to the bond. So we'll go forward with those requests. However, we'll want to know as soon as possible if any of the partners are choosing to add any cash to the new funding. And then with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Sarah, who's going to go through the dollars in the market, and then we'll come back to you for a recommendation at the end.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm Sarah Hollenbeck with Public Financial Management. We have had the pleasure of working with the City of Santa Rosa for many years, I think going back to 2006, perhaps, on all of the wastewater financings. And as Kimberly mentioned, we have been working with the city team on a new money financing for the UV disinfection system. And in the course of that project, also identified that there's an opportunity to refinance some of the existing outstanding bonds and generate debt service savings, which is a great opportunity as it will offset the additional cost of debt service associated with this new project. Kimberly, are you in charge of or controlling the presentation, or should I be able to advance this?
You can say just move to the next slide, and Priscilla will be doing that for you.
Fantastic. So if we could move to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the market opportunity. So, you know, one of the perhaps only good things of the current crisis or crises that we're all experiencing this year is the fact that interest rates have dropped to historically low levels. And so for borrowers like the wastewater system, it's a good opportunity to finance capital projects at a very attractive rate of interest. So as you can see on the slide, these are the tax exempt municipal market conditions. And the two components of this proposed financing will be issued a part in the tax exempt market, that would be the new financing portion. And then the refinancing portion would be done on a taxable basis. And we can talk in a moment about why that is. So what we're showing here is a depiction of long-term tax exempt borrowing rates. This is a graph that depicts the municipal market index, which is in the tax exempt bond market, similar as a reference point to a US Treasury bond would be in the taxable market. And what we're showing you here is going back all the way to 1993 when this index, which is called the MMD index, which stands for Municipal Market Data, all the way back to 1993, the interest rate levels as of last Friday had only been lower than where they are now 1% of the time, essentially across all bond maturities. So from the 1-year bond to all the way out to the 30-year bond, basically rates have essentially almost never been lower than they are today. So if you need to borrow money to build projects, it's a great time to be doing it. If we could go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the taxable bond market. And again, this is the US Treasury yield curve. And so this is showing you where US Treasury bonds are in the 2, 10, and 30-year spots. We are talking about rates that are on the long end. The 30-year bond is currently at a 149. Again, this was as of last Friday, so they've crept up a little bit. But you can see the dotted yellow line is where rates were a year ago. So quite a bit higher, still quite low. I mean, on the 30-year, on the long end, it was above 2%, whereas it's around 1.5% now. But these very low rates do create an attractive opportunity to refinance, as people have been doing with their mortgages and other debt that they may have, refinance that debt at a lower interest rate and save money. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. So if we could go to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about, so there are two series of bonds, as I mentioned. There are 2020A, which is the new portion of the financing, the tax exempt portion. And the proposal before this group, and that will go before the BPU and City Council, is to finance approximately $70 million of projects. The current estimate is that about 57.3 million of bonds would be issued to accomplish that. And that sounds a little strange. How are we going to pay for 70 million of projects with only 57 million of bonds? The current market for municipal bonds, investors are willing to pay a premium for them. So more than 100 cents on the dollar for the bonds they're purchasing. So you don't have to issue as much in bond principal as you are going to receive, because as you can see in the second line in the table, you would be anticipating receiving about $8.6 million in what's called premium. The proceeds, as I mentioned, will go toward the UV project. And at the same time as this new financing is being contemplated, the fact that we're proposing to issue, I should say, taxable refunding bonds under the existing bond indenture, we will meet certain provisions that allow the city to release some money that's currently held in a debt service reserve fund in the trustees' hands, and that can also be put toward the project. So it just reduces the amount that's needed to be borrowed. The current estimate of the interest rate, sort of the effective borrowing rate on this financing, is 3.11%, which is a pretty attractive rate for debt service going out through 2051. And the average annual debt service is estimated at about $3.5 million. If we could move to the next, if anybody, well, let's pause there and see if there are any questions on that. for a moment. All right. Seeing and hearing none, we could go to the next slide. And so this slide is discussing the refinancing opportunity. That would be the 2020 Series 2020B bonds. And these would be taxable advanced refunding bonds, which would refinance the outstanding Series 2012A bonds. About 50.8 million of those bonds can be refinanced and generate savings. And we expect that in the current market, we would generate about 6.8 million of net present value savings, which represents 13.4% of the refunded par amount. And that savings computation includes all the costs associated with executing this transaction. Just as a reference point, the benchmark for issuing municipal refunding bonds. So when our clients are contemplating whether to proceed with a refunding opportunity, the standard benchmark that is looked at is anywhere between 3 and 5% NPV savings. So an opportunity that's generating 13 or so % savings is clearly one that would be viewed as very attractive. And the cash flow savings are estimated at 7.8 million, and on an annual basis, as you can see, it would be approximately $561,000 of debt service that would be eliminated through this transaction. So that's a pretty good opportunity, especially when taken at the same time as there's additional debt being issued to bring you to a net position better than you would have been if you had just had to add 70 million of debt without this component added in. If you'd like to understand, let me just briefly say the reason that this portion of the financing would need to be issued on a taxable basis is that in 2017, the federal tax reform eliminated the opportunity for issuers to issue refunding bonds on a tax-exempt basis more than 90 days before the date the bonds can be called. And that call date for this series is in 2022. So we've looked at the opportunity, whether we'd be better off waiting, but I believe some of the bonds being refinanced were actually refunding bonds themselves and cannot be cannot be refunded on a tax-exempt basis, even at that call date. So we've done the math to determine whether this is really the right time to take advantage of this opportunity, and we believe that it is.
Sarah, it looks like Sonoma Water has joined us, and I think, Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did actually lowered my hand because she just answered.
Apologies.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, thanks for, good morning, everyone. And yeah, my question had to do with the why were we going out with taxable, but that question was answered, so thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions on this portion? Okay, I think we can move on. So we are anticipating receiving ratings the week of November 2nd. Our rating presentation with Standard & Poor's is next week. Then we would look to price the week of November 16th and close at the end of the year. The market, as folks might imagine, with slightly tumultuous election season, currently it's been holding fairly steady. There has been a little bit of creep up in rates. So we'll be working closely with the underwriter, which is Stifel, and determining when is best to enter the market. There is a significant amount of supply of debt that's expected to try to get into the market before the election. Our schedule will not put us in the market at that time. So we will be in the post-election period, but it's starting to sound like that actually may be to our advantage because there are so many other issuers who are trying to get their transactions sold by November, early November before the election, that's getting a little bit crowded. And we may find ourselves in a place of, that supply has kind of come into the market and been absorbed by the investors and hit a period of less sort of traffic and congestion relative to other issuers bringing their transactions to the market. So we'll keep an eye on this, and we can work closely. PFM has a pricing group who all they do every day is advise issuers on the issuance of debt and structuring and when and how much and at what levels in both the taxable and tax exempt market. And then we'll also be working closely with Stifel to look at when, once we have all the approvals that we need, when is the appropriate time, and we can shift this schedule by a week or a few weeks this way or that. Certainly easier to delay than move forward more quickly. But we'll be keeping an eye on that and advise the city and the rest of the team as to when we plan to issue. We're not obligated to go the week of November 16th if we see that things are still settling out after the election and it's better to wait. So we'll be trying to hit the right moment to bring this forward for the best execution. I think that's it for that slide. Kimberly, did you want to take this one back with respect to the recommendation?
Was there one slide in between there? I thought I saw.
I think there might have.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
sorry. I was looking at two screens. Yes, so the actions that are being brought forward would be resolutions that the council ultimately would authorize staff and the third parties to execute the transaction that meet certain parameters. Again, we're estimating to the best of our ability. At this point, the presentation has addressed, the specific interest rate costs and debt service figures that we expect as of the market today. How this gets authorized is the resolution, sets forth certain parameters that are not to be exceeded or minimum savings in the case of the refunding. And those are sort of the lines within which we need to color as we bring this forward. So the par amount of the new portion of the financing, the new borrowing 2020A is 70 million as a maximum. The maximum for the Series 2020B would be 60 million. Again, those are greater than the amount we're currently anticipating, but those provide some flexibility to adjust to changing conditions. The minimum savings threshold that the refinancing component must meet in order to move forward is 3%. As I mentioned, we were at 13% at the moment, so we should hopefully be able to exceed that, to well exceed that. The underwriter's compensation is not to exceed 0.5%. And then along with the resolution will come forward the indenture, which is actually a supplemental indenture. The master indenture was written, I think, back in the 90s. So this is a supplement to that, and the major terms of this financing are set forth in that, and all the existing terms of the bonds will be consistent with the prior issuances. There's a continuing disclosure certificate, the preliminary official statement, which is the disclosure document that tells investors all the things they need to know in order to make an informed investment decision. The bond purchase agreement, which is essentially the contract between the city and Stifel as the purchaser of the bonds, who will then resell them to the market, and an escrow agreement that essentially governs the funds that are held by the trustee prior to the date on which the 2020B bonds can be called. So if there are no questions, or if there are any questions about that, although I'm not a bond lawyer, I'm a municipal advisor, but happy to answer what I might be able to about any of those actions. And if none, then I guess we can go to the slide that I accidentally skipped to initially.
I've got a question, Sarah. Okay.
Yes.
So the bonds being leveraged against or looking towards the city of Santa Rosa's financial situation, right?
Yeah, they'll be secured by the net revenues of the wastewater system.
Okay. Is the situation there sufficiently strong to make this happen? I mean, they looked at those finances, the rates being provided, and we're a pretty strong candidate to get this. We're not like on the cusp or anything. We're pretty strong.
Correct. Yeah, there's strong coverage available. You know, the metrics that the rating agencies will look at and what we look at are primarily debt service coverage, so capacity to take on this additional debt, as well as sort of another big metric that they look at is liquidity. And so as we're crafting the rating presentation, and in fact, we have a call on that, I think just later this morning, yes, we've been looking closely at the available coverage and capacity. And we believe that not only is there sufficient capacity to be able to repay this, but to do so in a manner that does not jeopardize the existing bond ratings of the enterprise.
I had kind of another more technical question. So the UV system has a certain lifespan. Does that make sense with this bond that it's got a pretty long life that this 30-year bond would make sense for?
Yeah, I don't know, Kimberly, did you want to talk about the system sort of useful life? I can speak to the question with, you know, kind of from a tax law perspective. Again, putting my bond lawyer hat on, but maybe regarding the project itself and its useful life. Is that something you'd want to talk?
Jennifer, do you know what the new life expectancy is for the new system?
I don't have that exact number, but I know we have our Deputy Director of Regional Operations, Emma Walton, also on the call. And I don't know if Emma can speak to the life. I believe we're expecting somewhere at least of a 20-year plus life for our UV system, longer than we had for the existing one. But I don't know if Emma's available.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So yeah, I can get the exact kind of life span expectations. But yeah, Jennifer, you're correct. We are expecting in that 20-25 year life span, and longer, hopefully longer than what we have gotten out of our current system. However, we have gotten a very good lifespan out of our current system, and much longer than other agencies have gotten out of the same system.
And I think too, and Emma can correct me if I'm wrong, but we do take the preventative maintenance of that system very, very seriously. And our staff has done a really amazing job of keeping that up so that we can get the longest life out of the UV system that we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. The preventative maintenance on that system is extremely important given its age, and our crews do an amazing job keeping that system up and running.
So Craig, I think that was one part of your question, and then you had a question about the debt for Sarah. Is that correct? Did that get answered?
Yeah, Sarah answered that question.
Okay.
And then the lifespan question was answered as well. Thank you.
And we can, we'll also open it up for questions as well as soon as Kimberly finishes the recommendation. But if there's any other questions at this time, if anyone else has any, otherwise I'll turn it back to Kimberly to finish the presentation.
And before I get to the recommendation, I will say that we are having our rating call next week. So it would be extremely helpful. I had sent out an email earlier requesting whether or not any of the partners would like to contribute cash to the projects as we had discussed during the budget process. If that is the case, it would be extremely helpful to us if we had that information by next Wednesday, so that when we are with the rating agency, we can actually give them the total amount of estimated bond that we would be going for. So if you would let me know, that would be great. If we need more time on that, then we'll have to go forward with the rating agency at the 70 million. If Santa Rosa doesn't also make a decision during this next few days as well. So please let me know that as soon as possible.
Kimberly?
Yes.
Would you be, I'd like to really like to chat more about that. Would you have time maybe on Monday? I'll try to get Lynn Roselli and maybe set up a call with you, Lynn and I. Would you have time on Monday to talk about that?
I will make myself available for you.
Okay.
And I will have the ability to run some scenarios for you that will show you how that'll affect your debt service. I still have that model, and I'll set it up with the numbers that we are now looking at. And so I'll be able to do that for you. If anybody else would also like to do that, I'll make the time next week for you.
That would be, I think that would be helpful. I think we would have an interest, a strong interest in doing that. And I'm just looking, sorry. And actually we'll continue on with other stuff, but yeah. Yeah, and so, okay, well, maybe I'll shoot you an email afterwards. And if you can send me some times that work best for you. I just noticed I have a big block of open time, and so we'll see if we can fit something that works well for you.
We'll do that right after this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly.
Any other questions on that piece before I get to the recommendation? Hearing none. What we are requesting is that the Subregional Technical Advisory Committee recommend by motion to the Santa Rosa Board of Public Utilities and City Council to approve the proposed bond series 2020A for the funds to be used for the ultraviolet disinfection system replacement project and the 2020B advanced refunding of the outstanding series 2012A.
Are you looking for a motion?
So yes, well, first, I wanted to ask if there were any questions from any of the subtac members. Hearing none, so yes, looking for a motion and a second on the recommendation.
I'll make a motion. We accept the recommendations as I think it was Kimberly's laid out, because I can't remember all the technical words.
And we have a motion from Sebastopol. Is there a second?
I'll second. Or Mary Grace, you second.
I did the minutes. It's yours.
Okay.
All right. So we have a motion from Sebastopol, a second from Sonoma Water. We are now going to open for public comment. So we are now taking public comments on item 5.1. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Secretary Reyes, do we have any live email or voicemail public comments for item 5.1?
We do not have any.
All right, thank you so much. If no public comment, no further questions, we will go ahead and take a roll call vote. Secretary Reyes, can you please do the roll call vote?
Santa Rosa,
Aye.
City of Cotati,
Aye.
City of Roanoke Park,
Aye.
City of Sebastopol,
Aye.
Sonoma Water.
Aye.
Thank you, and that motion passes with 5 ayes. And again, just thank you very much to Kimberly and Sarah for your presentation. Want to remind the subtac we will be bringing this to our Board of Public Utilities next week and then to the City Council on October 27th. And as mentioned, if you have any questions or would like to discuss any cash contributions, please let Kimberly know. We'd really like to get that information before next Wednesday. All right. Okay, so our next item is item 5.2 will be an update on our regional organics processing facility. And I wanted to remind the subtac that our Deputy Director of Regional Water Reuse Operations, Joe Schwal, retired on September 4th. And I'm very excited to let everyone know that Deputy Director Emma Walton was very interested, and I was extremely happy and excited that she wanted to move out and take over operations in the treatment plant. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we're just extremely grateful and very happy that she has taken over. So she will now be presenting this item. She is actually, unfortunately, probably to her, but I think she likes it, keeping this project from her old position, but then takes over running the regional system. So I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Director of Regional Water Reuse Operations, Emma Walton.
Good morning. See if I can share my screen. Is it there? All right. So I'm going to give you guys all a brief just recap of the project and then some information about our current efforts on the project. So just as a reminder, Zero Waste Sonoma released an RFP for an in-county regional organics processing facility back in May of 2017 after the closure of the compost facility on Meacham Road. To join in on the effort, in July of that year, the City of Santa Rosa released its own RFP to offer up a potential facility site location. And we went through a process of pre-selecting a number of proposers that we would be willing to work with in the event that they were selected by Zero Waste Sonoma as the preferred vendor. In August of 2018, Zero Waste Sonoma executed an exclusive negotiation agreement with Renewable Sonoma, who they selected as their preferred vendor for the project. And then in February of 2019, Santa Rosa similarly executed an exclusive negotiation with Renewable Sonoma for a potential site location with a preferred location identified on the property that the city's biosolids composting facility was located. So just a reminder, in the foreground here, you can see the city's biosolids composting facility that was in operation at the time, along with some acreage north of the plant along Meadow Lane. This was the preferred site identified in Renewable Sonoma's proposal, as well as identified in the exclusive negotiation agreement that the city executed with Renewable Sonoma. So in order to understand if we would allow Renewable Sonoma the opportunity to develop a project on this site, we had to find a new home for the biosolids that we were composting. So this was a pretty big shift in our program and our operations for the last 20 years. So we did go to the Board of Public Utilities to receive approval to even release an RFP soliciting interest from vendors who would want to process the biosolids that we were composting. So we got approval in September of 2019 to release an RFP. We subsequently released an RFP and went through a selection process and brought a recommendation back to the board in March of 2020. The recommendation from staff was to enter into an agreement with Liz Tech, who operates at the Fairfield Sassoon wastewater treatment plant, and who we actually already were sending biosolids to as kind of a pilot project and kind of a small release of biosolids to just diversify our options. BPU did approve the contract with Liz Tech to send the biosolids that were previously composted, and that contract begins in November of 2020, and we plan to begin sending biosolids to Liz Tech next month. We did close our compost facility, and in May of 2020, May 14th of 2020, our last load of compost was sold after nearly 25 years of operation. Since May, we've been buttoning up the facility and selling off some of the equipment. So that opened up the opportunity for Renewable Sonoma to potentially develop a project on that site. And I do just want to remind this group that our decision to process our biosolids in an alternative way from composting was an independent decision from the Renewable Sonoma project. We have been discussing for a number of years our biosolids program and looking at opportunities to improve the cost effectiveness of that program. We were also facing, after 25 years of operation, some pretty large capital investment needs to our biosolids compost facility. And so through an independent decision, we did find it beneficial to the city to discontinue the use of our composting facility and dispose of all our biosolids in an alternative manner. But it did open up the site for Renewable Sonoma to potentially develop a project on that site. So as I said earlier, we are currently in an exclusive negotiation agreement with Renewable Sonoma. And we, as well as Zero Waste Sonoma, are working towards pre-development agreements with Renewable Sonoma. And those pre-development agreements are really kind of the start of the project development. Just as a reminder, there's a lot of steps that need to go into developing this large of a project. Obviously, CEQA will need to be completed, which hasn't even begun. Pre-design will begin in order to facilitate CEQA. We're continuing to have a lot of discussions with our neighbors, which will also be a requirement of CEQA. And look at all of the various impacts that this project may have and what the mitigation requirements would be for such a project. Renewable Sonoma, given the time that it's been since Renewable Sonoma first proposed on this project, some of the project components have changed. Some of the price points have been refined. So Zero Waste Sonoma has asked for Renewable Sonoma to come back to their board and prepare a presentation that details the current status of the project, the current kind of proposed design, the current price points, and they've asked Renewable Sonoma to do that presentation at their November 18th meeting. Following that presentation, we'll get a better sense of where Zero Waste Sonoma is planning on going with this project. But if all goes as planned, we will continue to work towards pre-development agreements with Renewable Sonoma, as will Zero Waste Sonoma, and then bring those pre-development agreements through the process for execution, which, as I mentioned, will kind of kick off the development of the actual project. And that's really where we are today. A lot kind of is waiting on the Zero Waste Sonoma board meeting on November 18th. We'll make sure to update this group after that occurs, as well as we have an ad hoc committee that's working on this project. We have our BPU City Council Liaison Subcommittee who's also working on this project, along with the Board of Public Utilities and ultimately the City Council. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the subtac members? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Emma. And so now we will open public comment. We are now taking public comments on item 5.2. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you are dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Secretary Reyes, are there any live, email, or voicemail public comments for item 5.2?
There are none.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we will now move on to item 5.3, which are division updates. We will have updates on both the environmental services and the regional water reuse operations divisions. First presenter will be our Deputy Director of Environmental Services, Sean McNeil.
Hello, let me get my share screen going. Could I get the screen sharing enabled?
Just one second. We're working on that. 1 second. It should be good to go now.
All right. All right, so I just wanted to give everybody a brief update on what's been going on in the Environmental Services Division. We have just recently enrolled under the Recycled Water General Order. We're excited about that. It's a new program. We had a number of concerns with the regional board's first draft of the general order, and they did accept almost all of our changes in that. And so we're excited about moving forward with that. Another thing that we're excited about in the Environmental Services Division, part of our division is the Laguna Environmental Lab, where we do all our water quality testing. And we just got a new gas chromatograph mass spectrophotometer. This is our most expensive instrument in our lab. It allows us to detect all the volatile compounds in water, soil, and plant tissues as is required under our permit. So we're excited about that. And we have a new NPDES permit as of October 1st, and I'll go into a little bit more on that permit. The negotiation process started right at the beginning of the pandemic. We had 30 days to comment. We had requested an extension, and were granted an extension on this negotiation process. So we were able to get an additional 30 days. We produced a letter with 36 comments. Of those 36 comments, 18 of them were accepted as presented by the city. Another 9 of the issues we identified were modified, but not necessarily exactly as the city had requested. But there were a few items, big issues that the city still felt was there. And that includes the phosphorus limit. The city has petitioned and held and put in abeyance the phosphorus limit and the water quality trading framework, as well as a few other items. We have a dissolved oxygen receiving water limit that we had asked for a time schedule order on that so that we could study and ensure that we could come into compliance with those new requirements, which has us having up to a needing of having the receiving waters maintain a level of 11 milligrams per liter of dissolved oxygen, which is higher than either of the 2 creeks that we discharge into attain reasonably. So we wanted some changes there. So we put that into abeyance as well. We'll continue to work with the board on those items. We are also excited about some of the new monitoring requirements and special studies. And I say excited because it's, in this work, there's a lot that we do that is the same, but occasionally we have this opportunity to really investigate different aspects of our discharge program and ensure that we are not only protecting our ratepayers, but also the environment. So we will be conducting a pathogen study to ensure that our recycled water ponds are not contributing to the pathogen issues that have been identified in the Russian River TMDL process. We're also will be doing an engineering evaluation of our recycled water ponds in all the outfalls and have some regular maintenance around that. We'll be developing a storage pond integrity study to ensure that our ponds are working as designed. And then we'll also be required in this permit and every permit moving forward to be updating our local limits, which kind of moves onto our local limits that we just completed in 2019. In July of 2019, it was approved by the regional board. The city of Santa Rosa adopted those local limits, but also included the new federal rules on the dental program. And we did that in November of 2019. Cotati, we worked with Cotati to update their code and include these new limits into their code. And we want to just remind this group that our staff are available to help support you in any way that you'd like to update your municipal ordinances to meet these new local limits. In general, these new local limits are more liberal than they were in the past, meaning that there's a few items that we have had to test for that we don't have to test for anymore. But it's just an opportunity for us to update the code and make sure it's compliant with these local limits. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions from subtac members or comments? Yes, Craig.
Okay, just quickly, were there any surprises in the NPDS permit? And then the second one, if I remember correctly, it's for 5 years. That's the only. Those are my questions.
I think one of the surprises was, the biggest surprise was the dissolved oxygen limit. Originally, the draft permit had a limit of 9 milligrams per liter of receiving water limitation. And that's what we had produced a request for a time schedule order on that. And eventually, when we met with the board to talk with them about that, they said, oops, our error, it's actually 11 milligrams per liter. And just so you know, for dissolved oxygen, the higher the number, the harder it is to achieve. And so that we found out, you know, in the midst of the negotiations past the 30-day notice. So we could only comment on that in public comment. So that's why that eventually got stuck into us petitioning that to put it into abeyance. And then you're right, the permit is generally scheduled for 5 years. Traditionally, it's been 6 or 7 years. What's happened is the permit has not been renewed at the end of the 5-year time frame. So it just gets extended until the regional board could complete all of their studies to draft the new order that eventually will replace this one. So we anticipate it being 5 years, but in reality, it probably will be 6 or 7.
Any
Great.
other questions or comments from subtac members? I just want to just really acknowledge and thank the team in Santa Rosa for the hard work on the MPDS permit. It was quite a lift, especially coming out in the middle of all of the COVID response and us having to deal with that. And really some great work by the team that helped get a number of the requirements addressed and actually removed or amended in the permit. So we were quite happy with a number of the changes they did make, and that was due to a lot of hard and great work by the staff. I also do want to acknowledge Mary Grace and her team, because now that we are both under, I hope, the recycled water general order, it will be a lot better for both Santa Rosa and Roanoke Park, as well as the subregional partners. So thank you, Mary Grace, and your staff for all your work on that as well. We are going to continue with item 5.3, and Deputy Director Walton will be making a divisional update on the regional water reuse operations. Emma.
All right. So we have a lot going on in our division, but just wanted to give a brief overview and highlight some big things that are going on. I'll talk about our recycled water. It seems to be of great interest these days. So just wanted to give you an update on what our deliveries have looked like this year. Talk about some current projects that we have going on and some upcoming projects. So to date, we have delivered almost 3 billion gallons of water to geysers. We've delivered about 1.5 billion gallons to our ag and city farms for irrigation on agricultural lands. And we have about 230 million gallons currently in storage. So our ag irrigation season is wrapping up, and we are beginning to store water. One of the biggest projects we have going on right now is our Delta Pond levee repair. It was about a mile-long repair of the Delta Pond, which required draining that very large pond. We anticipated originally that would be a multi-year, 2-3-year project, but the contractor has been able to complete nearly all of the work to date, and is anticipating wrapping up completion of the project in the next month. So it's really great that we had a contractor that was able to get all of that work done in a single construction season. We also have a project out here at the administration building to replace our chillers and do upgrades to our climate control, which is particularly important for our environmental lab. They run tests that require not a lot of flexibility in the climate, and temperatures in the lab. So it's important that we give them good conditioned space to run their analysis. We are also about to start work on the Digester 2 roof repair. We repaired the roof on Digester 1 last season, and we will be repairing the second one this season. And so that'll get both of our fixed covered roof or floating covered roofs repaired for a while. And then we have a project going on right now to repair our D-incline pump. This is the pump that allows us to have flexibility in where we are storing our recycled water. It's a very important pump for our recycled water operations. We've been relying on a rented pump for a little time now. So now that we're at the end of our irrigation season and we're able to get deep pond drained without impacts to our ag users, the repairs on that pump will begin. We also have some big upcoming projects. Our geysers expansion joint replacement project. These are the flexible joints up on the hill, 2 of which have already failed. We were anticipating getting that work done this construction season, but unfortunately with COVID, the factories that manufacture these expansion joints were impacted and were unable to deliver, manufacture and deliver the expansion joints in a timely manner that would allow us to get it done this season. So we have chosen to just pause that project, and we'll pick it up next year in July. Thankfully, the contractor that bid on the project is willing to allow us to delay the project, and the joint manufacturer is willing to commit to delivering the joints next year. So that should all be moving forward. Even with the delays, it should be moving forward smoothly. We also just opened bids to replace the roof on our Miacamas pump station. It's one of the geysers pump stations up on the hill. That work should be occurring in this construction season, and we'll want to get that done quickly before the rains come. We are also in the finaling the design for our geysers Delta connection. This project will provide flexibility in how we move recycled water throughout our system and allow us to move water more quickly through the system. So that project is finaling design and is anticipated to be bid early next year. And then similarly, our disinfection and diversion, this is our UV replacement project, very large project coming up that you heard about earlier from Kimberly and her team. We are finishing up design of that project as well. And we are shooting to go out to bid on that project early next year, and then start construction kind of mid next year. And it'll be a long construction project, about 2.5 years is what we're estimating currently. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any committee member questions or comments for either of the deputy directors on their updates?
Yeah, just real quick, and Emma, you might have said this, what was the cost of the Delta levee repair? Just curious, I might have missed it.
I didn't say it. I'd have to look at the bid, the documents to verify. if I'm going to make it up, I think in $1.5 million range, but don't quote me on that. But I do recall that the contractor who won the award came in substantially lower than any of the other contractors who bid on the project. And I believe that's because they were confident that they could get the work done in a single construction season.
Great. And I just and I'll just put a note for us maybe to follow up on, I think the diffuser work in that area on Santa Rosa Creek, and you know, kind of had some ideas on that, which maybe Emma, you and I can just follow up afterwards to kind of go through some scenarios on how to facilitate how we can help you get that work done.
That would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
I'll also follow up with the actual construction cost in an email.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Craig.
Sure. I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate Emma Walton on being getting this position of Deputy Director of Operations, and I really look forward to working with you in this new capacity. It's very encouraging to see someone be promoted from within and being able to retain that local knowledge.
Yeah.
We're all going to benefit from that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And to just calm everyone's nerves, I have Joe Schwall's number on speed dial, so we're in good hands.
I almost feel like we should have our own motion to congratulate Emma and commend Jennifer for a good pick. But good point. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Craig, for bringing that up.
Well, thank you all for the warm welcome.
All right. Any other committee member comments or questions? And yes, we are very delighted that Emma's in this role. If not, so we'll have to do our public comments. So we are now taking public comments on item 5.3. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Secretary Reyes, do we have any live email or voicemail public comments for item 5.3?
We have none.
Thank you. All right. So that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. Item 6 is adjournment. I did want to take a moment. Last week, the water department lost a cherished member of our water team. Daryl Clark was a water system tech for 12 years with the water department, and he worked on our geysers operations crew. His family will be holding services this Saturday. If anyone would like details, we're happy to provide them. The water department is deeply saddened, and our hearts and thoughts are with the family at this time. And I would just like to adjourn the meeting in Daryl's memory and honor. So thank you.
And I think we all pass our condolences on. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you all. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.